You're sitting outside a room waiting to be called in. A job interview, a first date, a stage you're about to walk onto. And your stomach does that thing again. That fluttering, swooping, faintly nauseating sensation that has nothing to do with food and everything to do with fear. You've felt it 100 times, and you've probably never once questioned why a feeling of anxiety would show up as a physical sensation in your gut instead of, say, your head. But here's what should genuinely unsettle you. Your stomach isn't reacting to your emotions after the fact. Deep in your evolutionary past, your body built an entire independent decision-making system down there, and that fluttering feeling is the sound of two nervous systems arguing with each other in real time. So the question is simple. Why does fear, an emotion that clearly starts in the brain, produce such a strong, specific, and universal sensation in an organ that has nothing to do with thinking at all? Let's start with the part almost nobody knows, because it completely reframes what your stomach actually is. Here's what doesn't make sense until you think about it. Your gut contains its own independent nervous system, called the enteric nervous system, made up of roughly 500 million neurons. Researcher Michael Gershon at Columbia University spent decades studying this network and eventually gave it a name that's stuck in medical literature ever since: the second brain. That's not a metaphor. It's a functioning, semi-autonomous network of neurons capable of operating your digestion almost entirely on its own, communicating constantly with your actual brain through a direct line called the vagus nerve. Your gut isn't a passive organ waiting for orders. It's a second command center, and when your brain senses danger, it doesn't just think about it. It calls downstairs. Think about that for a second. Every time you felt nervous, you weren't imagining a connection between fear and your stomach. You were feeling an actual physical conversation between two nervous systems. So what exactly gets said in that conversation? This is where the biology gets genuinely strange, because the fluttering sensation isn't your stomach panicking randomly. It's your body making a specific ancient survival decision. When your brain detects a potential threat, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, which immediately redirects blood flow away from your digestive organs and toward your muscles, your heart, and your lungs. Research on stress physiology, including work compiled by neuroscientist Bruce McEwen at Rockefeller University, shows this blood flow shift can reduce digestive activity by a significant margin within seconds, essentially pausing digestion mid-process. Your stomach isn't malfunctioning. It's being deliberately, forcefully shut down, and that sudden drop in blood flow and muscle activity is exactly what produces the hollow, fluttery sensation you feel. Here's the part nobody talks about, though. Digestion is expensive. It takes a massive amount of your body's energy to break down food, and in a genuine survival emergency, spending that energy on digestion instead of running or fighting could be fatal. Shutting it down instantly wasn't a glitch. It was resource management executed in under a second without asking your permission. Now here's where this gets truly ancient, because this reaction long predates anything resembling a modern human. Evolutionary biologists studying the autonomic nervous system point out that this exact fight-or-flight mechanism, including the gut-brain shutdown response, appears in reptiles, birds, and virtually every vertebrate studied, suggesting it evolved hundreds of millions of years before humans existed at all. Fossil evidence and comparative anatomy research on early vertebrate nervous systems place the origins of this basic threat response system as far back as roughly 500 million years, long before anything with a spine walked on land. Your butterflies aren't a uniquely human quirk. They're a genuinely prehistoric alarm system, inherited essentially unchanged, still running exactly the way it ran in creatures that existed before dinosaurs. That reframes the whole thing, doesn't it? The fear you feel before a job interview is being processed by hardware older than trees. Let's talk about why this system still exists at full strength, because a modern job interview clearly isn't a life or death predator encounter. This is the twist that flips the whole assumption on its head. Your nervous system doesn't actually know the difference. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux, whose research on the amygdala throughout the 1990s reshaped how scientists understand fear responses, demonstrated that the brain's threat detection center reacts to social and physical danger using largely the same circuitry. To a survival system built for a world of predators, ambushes, and sudden violence, public humiliation, judgment, and rejection register as genuine threats to your safety because for nearly all of human evolutionary history, they effectively were. Anthropological research on hunter-gatherer social structures shows that being rejected or cast out of your group didn't just hurt your feelings. It frequently meant losing access to food, protection, and survival itself. Here's what nobody tells you about this part, though. Your ancestors who felt intense physical anxiety before high stakes social moments, approaching a stranger, confronting a rival, addressing the group, were arguably the ones who prepared harder, moved more carefully, and survived more often. The people who felt nothing walked into danger blind. So when your stomach flutters before that interview, it isn't malfunctioning in a modern world it doesn't understand. It's running the exact same emergency protocol that once helped your ancestors survive genuine, physical, life-altering danger, just aimed at a target that no longer has teeth. Zoom out for a second because there's something bigger happening underneath all of this. Every element of that fluttery, uncomfortable sensation traces back to a system working exactly as intended. A second brain in your gut, quietly running its own operations. A sympathetic nervous system slamming digestion to a halt to save energy for danger. A 500 million year old alarm circuit that can't tell the difference between a predator and a panel of interviewers. And an ancestral memory, buried deep in your biology, that social rejection once meant literal death. Here's the part that should genuinely humble you. What feels like your body betraying you in your most anxious moments is actually one of the most ancient, most reliable survival systems you own, still fully operational, still doing exactly what it was built to do. It's not broken. It's just old enough that it hasn't caught up to the fact that most modern threats don't bite. That reframes the whole picture, doesn't it? The discomfort you've spent your whole life trying to breathe away before a big moment is proof that a 500 million year old warning system still trusts you enough to keep working. So the next time you're sitting outside that room, waiting to be called in, feeling that familiar swooping sensation in your stomach, notice what's actually happening. That's not weakness. That's not nerves getting the better of you. That's a second brain, older than the dinosaurs, doing the exact job it's always done. Clearing the runway, redirecting the resources, getting you ready for whatever comes through that door. Your ancestors didn't have therapists or breathing exercises. They had a gut that knew, 500 million years before humans existed, exactly when to sound the alarm. You didn't inherit anxiety. You inherited an alarm system that's never once stopped working.